All right, we're going to go into our potentially last and final game. Of course, it all depends on Happy, and if he can actually get back into this. They're 1-1 apiece, but MouseSports is up 2-1 in the overall series. So this is where it all comes down to. Let's go ahead and check it out in the game. It's going to be on the Shattered Temple. Empire Happy is going to be spawning over here at the 9 o'clock position, the yellow Terran. Green Protoss is going to be MouseCC Mana. PvT on the Shattered Temple.
Did they get a new sponsor or something? Is that the CC?
Yes, they did.
Do you know who the CC is?
I wish I did. I remember reading it and saying, oh.
Love to give them love.
Cool. Oh.
Look into that, guys. Obviously, it's a big deal if everyone on Mouse changes their name.
Editor. Production. You can find out for us really quickly. Anyway, we're going to go into this. What do you think about the Shattered Temple TVP?
Well, here's the thing. I think it was this match where we mentioned this, but as a Terran player, well, I know that Terran player did pick it. You have a 50% chance to get close air positions, and that is extremely powerful for Terran versus Protoss. I'm not going to say it's imbalanced or anything like that. It certainly is not. But it's one of the built-in obstacles that a Protoss player has to overcome. The potential for drop, the quicker Banshee. It just really feels uncomfortable. So like one gate expand, there's just a little bit more of a risk to it. Now, as we can see here, it is cross-map position, so Happy did not get that lucky strike that he was perhaps hoping for. But it's not like this map all of a sudden becomes a bad map for him. It's still confined. There's 3 bases, sure, but there are destructible rocks separating them. If you look how far away the main is from the third, it's really nice for multi-prong attacks. The middle is very open, so any kind of force field play becomes a little bit weaker if you try to engage in the middle because it takes more force fields to do the same that you would do in a more confined space. So a pretty good map TVP. It used to be, in earlier metagame situations, it was considered a really good TVP map, but since then, of course, I think the Protoss players have improved leaps and bounds, and now this map's not too terrible for them.
Yeah, there was all sorts of things where Terran could just abuse Protoss players for not having that third up in time. So I think, they've wised up. Colossus play is kind of phasing out a little bit. Not completely, I should say, but, obviously Colossus play was the death of them, I thought. Like
it's getting split up, I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
It used to be just Colossus play. Now we're seeing more like Storm First or Puzzle-esque Double Forge timings.
Yes, yes.
They're making an appearance.
Yeah, it's starting to be split. Like, instead of going just Colossus, you go Colossus and a little bit of upgrades.
Right.
Or, upgrades and a little bit of maybe charge lots or whatever it might be. Just, you need some sort of tech for sure.
Right.
But it's actually really interesting, I think, how it's developed.
Double gas after a Reaper opener. So here's the thing. This is really interesting. If I'm a Protoss player and I see a Reaper, that tells me that there's going to be Marauders behind it, which means 1 racks expand, just totally standard.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But if you look at the base, it's poised to become a 1-on-1, which is exactly what's going to happen here. The part that starts to... No, actually, I was going to say that's the 3rd depot at the wall, but it's not. It's actually just a barracks, or a bunker, excuse me. So this is really smart. Happy is broadcasting. I made a tech lab on a barracks. You should think I'm going Marauder, which means I should be expanding or doing 2 barracks play, both of which you start to delay your expansion, so you don't necessarily go 1 gate robo, which is actually what he's doing.
Uh-oh.
Or 1 gate expands, what I meant to say.
And the sentries over here, a Zealot's going to join in, but if you didn't know, 1 sentry actually dies out to 1 Reaper. So
it does.
He wants to be careful about this.
3 SCVs do, or 3 probes do
wow.
die.
Fourth
he gets a 4th. Maybe a 5th.
Very nice. And I don't know. Ooh,
oh,
nice.
Good micro. And he's going to get away. No, okay, Soccer does clean it up. I will take 5 SCVs, or excuse me, 5 probes for a Reaper any day of the week. He gets perfect scouting. Now, the thing is, mana, I want to say this too. If you go 1 gate robo off a double gas and then expand, this is the build that Alicia made really popular. It's actually the blind counter to 1-on-1. It's the most powerful build there is. However, if you add a 2nd and perhaps even a 3rd gate, it looks like it's just going to be 2 and then expand. It's starting to get into that danger zone where you're a little bit too neutral. That 2nd gateway prolongs the effectiveness, or the point at which this Nexus becomes effective. Excuse me. And that's a little bit more dangerous. Just a little bit. Of course, 3 gates would have been worse, but 2's still moving in the wrong direction.
Yeah, it actually takes quite a long time for you to make money off of this Nexus. I mean, all the probes that you have to saturate with it, you have to pay back those, you have to pay back the Nexus. So you're looking at 1-2 minutes at least, I think, one or 2 minutes where you're just trying to make up for all the, you know, investment that you put into that one expansion. So we'll see if Mana is able to defend or accurately defend against
Here comes
any
his observer. There's the bad news.
shenanigan. Oh, yeah.
Sees
No
the tanks.
CC.
The second he sees the tanks in that starport with the tech lab on, he knows exactly what he's facing. So I would almost guarantee you we don't see a Twilight Council. I really don't think that that's the response he wants to a 1-1. Right now, he's 100% certain he's facing a 1-1. I have to imagine it's like Chrono Boosted Immortals, maybe 3 Gateways, but probably faster Colossus. But it looks like it might just be Gateways, actually.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Zealot Stalker is fine. I would actually love him to get just a single Forge and get +1 armor. I think that's like a great way to actually deal with it if you're able to obviously just...
It's great, but someone once hit at the 930, and if you actually did that,
that's true.
You're digging your own grave, so it's kind of a risk.
Yeah.
Then there's the 1-1 that hits at like the 15-minute mark, and of course that +1, and even almost +2, or excuse me, +1 attack as well as armor. Then you're starting to talk about the stuff that wins you the game. And that's what's so complicated about the 1-1. Like, there's so many different variations about it that your advice would have been the best answer to a certain kind, but the worst answer to another kind.
Does look like he's gearing up for a pretty fast one, though. It will hit pretty soon. Of course, the first Banshee is on the way out here. And is he just going to continue?
Gretorp, there's a tech lab on that barracks.
Wait, what?
A tech lab on the barracks. No upgrade just yet. Maybe waiting for
Combat
100.
shield.
This might be stim. Or combat shield. Yep, combat shield it is. But Gretorp, this means your advice perhaps would have been flawless, because this attack should not hit until that 1-1 happens.
That's going to be rough. I mean,
And-
Mana, you can see he's being brutally efficient right now. He just stopped probe production completely. I actually don't agree with stopping probe production completely. You want to like do it super slowly. I wouldn't actually mind taking 2 probes off of the geysers and being a little bit more zealot heavy so that you can just produce a couple more probes here and there. But here we go. Man, this is a really scary army.
Observer does get picked off. Gretorp, he actually went with the 5 gateways, which again, like I said, if this attack was coming about 2 minutes earlier, this is the best answer, but because it's not, you need a Colossus for this much stuff. Like, Immortals are really nice, and he is in position to flank, which is fantastic. This is the best chance he can have at that. If that army gets scouted, or if the SCVs pull back and act as a meat shield for these tanks, this flank gets made to look really silly, actually. And unfortunately for Man, I think that's what's going to happen here. Here it comes.
Here we go.
A little bit too early.
Guardian shield is going to pop up.
Force fields go down, but those don't do anything, actually. And he's not even going to siege the tanks, and that's good, because he's actually got so many Marines that you don't want the friendly fire to hurt you. Mortal's getting focused down on the inside of that. There is a sandwich going on, but look at how much Terran's left here to fight.
Oh yeah, combat shield is finished. That's going to help so much. The auto turret is actually being placed down. It soaks up a little bit of damage. This one Immortal is chasing the siege tank all the way over here, and we do have a single Immortal and Sentry over here. Now, here's the problem, right? He wants to be making things like, you know, Zealots and Stalkers, but he has to deal with these Banshees. And okay,
Yeah, he's got no answer for him.
he has no answer for them.
You're absolutely
right now.
correct.
So it's like Stalkers aren't the best actually at dealing with Marines. You actually like Zealots against them because they can tank really well, and additionally they do a ton of damage. It forces them to actually stutter step back, and they actually do less damage. They do less damage like that. But now, I mean, Happy is going to clean up here, and down goes the Nexus. How does he actually? I don't
Gretorp,
think
you're
he
so
can
right.
actually
It's
do
the
anything.
Banshees. So the Zealots are your only answer to these Marines. They're going to get in there on that, but 2 Stalkers versus 3 Banshees. And does he have enough for a PDD? No, he does not. Maybe an auto turret, though. And look at that focus down, pulling back the weakened Banshee. Such good micro. And there's just no anti-air here. Pulling back Immortal trying to do a bit of a counterattack. And this is going, like, Man is doing the most with what he's got, but it's just not enough.
No. And look at that, all 3 Banshees are going
Pull back
to
and
live from
repair.
here.
That's what he should do.
Now, wow, Mana is actually ahead in workers. That's actually really, really surprising.
Yeah.
It's looking at, what is that, 20 workers to 14, and he's not going to obviously make any more. But what can he actually do? I mean, the tech is so heavily favoring the Terran at this point. And with this...
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, this looks really bad, but actually these Banshees returning home to repair is the winning choice by Happy.
Yes.
Because he shouldn't attack with tanks. There is, oh wow, there's 2 queued up, I was just going to say, but actually what should happen here, even a medevac coming out, is the Banshees get repaired, the Marine count grows, And unfortunately for Mana, it's not like he had the robotic space, so he's not one Colossus away from basically canceling out the Marines. He's a building, then a Colossus away from that. Immortals don't help him here. It's only going to be 2 tanks. You have to make Stalkers, but also the Raven's gathering energy. So maybe there's a PDD in this next fight, which I think there will be. And that PDD basically means your 4 Stalkers, they have to go away. They can't fight here. They just simply can't fight here.
Obviously a big problem, and I have no clue what Mana's going to do in this position. I mean, he doesn't have the Twilight Council, he doesn't have the robotic space, he doesn't have a forge. Those are the 3 things that you can look forward to. When you're on equal economy, it doesn't matter how many gateway units you have, you are going to be composition countered. That's the biggest problem.
And here's 101 2.0, my friend. They're coming right back. If you look at that supply count, it is in favor of the Terran player who's actually even behind 7 Harvesters, like you said. But what really concerns me is the army composition. These are fully healed Banshees, which will also be repaired on the fly. 2 tanks, which is like the least scary aspect of this army, as Thors are coming out to counter that. Stalker's moving forward. This is good. Potentially pick off a Wandering Banshee.
Yes.
And he does just that. So that's nice. In exchange for a Stalker, I'll take that trade any day of the week. But of course, Mana has to do that about 5,000 more times in different ways in order to be okay here, and I just don't think it's going to happen.
Mana, one thing that he can do is completely dominate the ground and have his reinforcements be the ones that actually clean up all the Banshees. He does have the gateway count, and you can see nice kiting, actually killing off a lot of these SCVs. Now focusing down on this one Banshee. Can he actually get down? No, PDD.
I don't like that PDD spot. It was a little bit premature,
yes.
But I'm not going to nitpick too much here. The Banshee should start to get repaired, and the Stalker count was trimmed down. Now, of course, he did make more Stalkers, but Mana's got this one army, and if he actually attacks into the PD, that'd be really sad. But actually, what Happy should do is force the issue. Siege up and fight from right here.
Oh, yeah.
And Mana's going to oblige. Here he comes. Stalkers in the front.
Oh,
Zealots are getting blocked. That's a really miscued attack. Force fields go up, but there's just not enough DPS here. Banshees are going to walk back, and Mana, I don't see it, man.
No, there's no way. The Immortals were way too far behind, and that was the key problem. Look
at this. No, it's fine. Like, the Banshees are untouchable. So,
okay.
The Zealots doing so much work. The Immortals making this look really close. But look at the money. No money for the Protoss. There's still 2 Banshees here and Marines on the ground. It's just not possible.
Yeah, and there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The probes are going to be pushed off the line. That's it. GG comes out from Mana. We have a 2-1 victory for Happy. What does that mean?
Ace match.
Going to Ace.
And I'm really excited. We're going to see who it's going to be. But before, let's just kind of break this down one more time.
Okay. Yeah.
I really want to limelight something here, because oftentimes we see the 1-on-1, and a lot of times either the player dies with the initial attack, but there's so much going on outside that. I really felt like Mana's 1 extra gateway after having gone 1 gate Robo, which is not 1 gate expand, puts him in a bit of a bind. If he goes 1 gate expand, against the very limited harass from Happy, he's probably in a really good position. Yep. If he goes 1 gate Robo, of course, it's exponentially less of a good position, but on the other hand, it's also a little bit better in the sense that he's further along his economy, or excuse me, his tech. But because he didn't make those choices, because Happy kind of juked him out with that Reaper, I really feel it goes back to that Reaper. I think that Happy achieved way too much damage in that first push, which meant that Mana was always trying to play catch-up.
Sure.
And in a 1-on-1 game, there's just no time. If you have an entire lap or two, to put it into like a sports analogy, to catch up to somebody, there's a better chance. But if you have half a race to do that, or half a lap rather, it's a lot harder.
One thing I do have to question a little bit about Mana's overall decision-making was the fact that he went for mass units to actually counter. Now, there are different ways to counter the 1-1-1. A lot of times you do see like that clutch unit. A lot of times you'll see Colossus or a clutch upgrade, which is Blink Stalker or Charge or +1 armor, something like that. You always have some key thing. Well, Mana dropped back and said, no, I'm not going to rely on any of those. I'm going to rely on massed units. Well, to do that, you need probes. You need a lot of probes. Losing 5 probes in the beginning and then not chrono boosting out your initial probes, taking that little risk to get those probes out there as fast as possible, it doesn't allow you to materialize well enough. He was at 30 probes off of 2 base. You're not really going to materialize too much off of that at all. So go for a little bit more probes, and then maybe you can rely on mass units. But
very little though, like from 30 to 35. To be honest with you.
Exactly. It's something very, very minuscule. Actually, I think the perfect amount would be. Let me figured out right now. 22 plus 16.
38.
What is that? 38. So you can't go past 38 for sure. So yeah, maybe 35 is perfect. Something around there.
And I've had Sock work with me on that. Demosum's talked about it too. It's kind of like the ZVZ effect, where if you have too many probes, especially if you chrono boosted said probes, then you're actually in a lot of trouble. If you're able to cut probes and get a lot of production out, that's great. But I think the one thing missing from that is going to almost always be that tech. Yeah. I have seen MC hold off a 1-on-1 with fantastic, just swarming army units in perfect control of them, but it's a lot harder. The problem here I have too, and this is not necessarily applicable 100%, but there's definitely food for thought here. Mana saw this variation of 1-1 in game 1 where it's 3 barracks. And if you have 3 barracks and you don't have Colossus or Sonic Storm, I mean, your options are very limited. It has to be like +1 armor, charge lots, fast Archons, like weird stuff like that. And even then it's kind of scary. But if you have just 1 or 2 non-ranged Colossus in your army and they get 3 or 4 shots off on all those Marines,
beautiful.
It's really easy to win from there. So, I mean, hindsight's 20/20, of course, but those are the things I want you guys to be thinking about when you're kind of digesting that match, if you will.
So we're going to go into our ace match, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with MouseSports against Empire.